Hello and welcome back to another pattern roundup video. Today I'm going to talk about dark and light academia aesthetics and patterns to get that look for yourself. So let's just get into it. Hello and welcome back. I'm excited to be doing another pattern roundup. I really enjoy filming them and kind of looking into these aesthetics for myself, and so I hope you enjoy them as well. I also have hiccups right now, so they're long enough apart that I feel like I can film, but I'm sorry if it's really annoying if you hear any hiccuping. But yes, we're talking about dark and light academia, which are technically two different aesthetics, but are so similar that I wanted to talk about them together, especially since they're very similar in silhouettes and differ more in texture and color, which of course, when you're knitting something, you can change that for yourself. So let's talk about them. So as normal, I'll be giving an overview, and then I have kind of 4 categories with 3 patterns each. So let's get into it. So first of all, an overview of these aesthetics. They are kind of both based on Ivy League schools or boarding schools and just a, traditional academic life. So, this is definitely not what I was wearing in college or any time in my academic career, but more kind of personified by, Harvard or Yale or Cambridge, or like I always think of boarding schools in England. Some key literature that kind of is the cornerstones of this aesthetic is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Is kind of the main dark academia literature media. And then I always think of The Secret Poets Society with the movie with Robin Williams for light academia. I've actually never read or watched either of those pieces of media. Let me know if they are good and I should check them out. But I just know so much about them through the aesthetic that they've kind of created. So of course, they're not the only pieces of media that have this aesthetic. It's pretty common to see a boarding school or an Ivy League or another, college with nicer dressing standards than mine had as a location for a piece of media, but those are definitely the cornerstones. So I've learned a lot about them just through learning about dark and light academia. So the aesthetic is really, as I've said, inspired by that academic life, the Ivy Leagues, the boarding schools, all the kind of high class academia. Once you get into the aesthetic, the main components of it are you want to be pretty modest, pretty covered, nothing too oversized either. So you look smart, but it's not, to the level of wearing a suit or a tie. Like you're not super business fancy. Like I could definitely wear this to work, but it's not necessarily just work outfits. It's librarian or it's not business casual. It's looking like a librarian or a student or a professor. And so, you see turtlenecks, you do see some button downs, typically layered. It's not like the button down is the full outfit. You'll see sweater vests, which is what I'm wearing, and a turtleneck. You'll see trousers, loafers for shoes, or like penny loafers, or Mary Janes or Oxfords are also really common. You see a lot of tweed, some cables, but nothing too texture, like nothing too in your face with texture or designs on the clothing either. You're not seeing big patterns or anything, but some, subtle, simple cables. You will see some sweaters as well or cardigans, but again, simple, more form-fitting, and nothing too textured or too patterned. Fabric-wise, you'll see some tweed, and color palette is very neutral. So this is kind of where the two aesthetics differ the most. In the silhouettes and the pieces of clothing you see, they're pretty similar, but color palette wise, dark academia, you see a lot more dark and cool neutral tones. So you see black or dark gray or light gray, but those kinds of, and then as your colors, maybe you'll see like a deep green or a deep blue. And then on that light academia side, you see a lot more beiges, creams, browns, whites, and some maybe red, like a nice kind of burnt orange red, or like maybe some yellow, a mustard yellow. They're both wearing the same base clothing of the same base items, but have these different colors built in. And then sometimes you'll also see with dark academia thicker textures, so thicker fabrics. You see more of that tweed or more wool coats, or just things that are thick and made for colder climates fit more into dark academia, and light academia may, not have as thick of items. There's, thinner trousers, thinner sweaters, just less fabric involved. So that's kind of an overview of the aesthetic. Getting into the patterns I've chosen to represent this. So again, I have 4 different kind of categories to get this aesthetic look, and I'll talk through 3 patterns from each. So the first is the sweater vest. And so as you can see, I'm wearing a sweater vest. I unfortunately did not make this sweater vest. It's store-bought from, I think, Hollister a few years ago. I have made a sweater vest, but it doesn't fit right, and it's in like a pastel rainbow, so definitely not academia as well, but sweater vest. So let's talk these through. The first pattern that I have is the Academic by Skandir Knits. It is a sport weight all over colorwork sweater, and of course the name really drew me to it. It's called the Academic, so that's always nice when you see a pattern that's like, oh yes, this is meant to fit this aesthetic. And yeah, it's a nice kind of Fair Isle all over textured jumper. You can see people who've styled it with a collar, kind of a Peter Pan collar sticking out. Lots of people using books in their sample images, which I always love. And yeah, just a nice, I feel like I'd see my like 60, 70-year-old professors teaching economics wearing this. And so I love that aesthetic. And I think layering it with a turtleneck or with a button down and a pair of trousers, or maybe even over like a dress or a skirt, would be a really nice academic look. So that's the first one. And as I said, it's sport weight, and it goes between a 28-inch bust to a 59-inch bust. So, not as great as we normally want at the top end of the ease, but I think it is a really beautiful piece and goes pretty high up. So that's that first pattern. Going to the next one, we have the Arcuate vest. I believe I'm saying that right. This is by Carissa, and it is a DK weight vest with all over cables. It actually looks pretty similar to this one, where there's a cable and then just a wide rib column and then a cable, and layered over a dress. It looks nice, layered with a button down, I think again a turtleneck or something, or just layered with a cardigan could look really good. And this one goes between a 29-inch bust and a 61-inch bust, and yeah, is just a beautiful, simple, textured but not too textured. And the cables kind of differentiate. This one, the cable is the same throughout the whole way, but this one has kind of different rates of cabling, so I think that looks really interesting and could be a really nice vest to layer to make your dark academia or light academia look. So there we go. And then the final vest, this is the Best Vest by James and Watts, and it is a worsted weight vest and goes from a 30-inch bust to a 62-inch bust. And it is just a simple, this is definitely the simplest sweater vest here, where it's just stockinette. It's got a 2x2 rib neckline, sleeve caps. I never know what to call like armholes, I guess. And then the hem is also just a 2x2 rib. I think layering this again with button up, turtleneck, under a cardigan would be great. This one, I will say, like some of the photos have the sweater neck or the sweater vest a little bit more oversized and lower. Like this, the V-neck is lower. So I would maybe recommend, if you wanted to knit this one and get a dark or light academia look, maybe sizing down in it so that you have a little bit less ease, and maybe you can change the increase rate so your neckline's a little bit higher. Just, I think that gives a slightly better look. But when you style a sweater vest with a button down, it is nice to have the V-neck a little bit lower so that the button down can really pop through and not kind of be awkwardly sitting out. So it's kind of a perfect line. I think this one's nice because it's really simple and can be layered really well because it does have that more space in the armholes and the neck, but that also can make it look more casual. So recommend, checking your size and making sure it's going to fit nicely with whatever you plan on wearing with it. But it's a really beautiful, simple piece. Moving to the next category, we've got our cardigans. So, you want to style a nice cardigan with like a pair of trousers and maybe just a turtleneck, or just wearing the cardigan as a top is great, whatever you decide. But trousers, or, a pencil skirt, or whatever really strikes your fancy for that academia look on the bottom, but turtleneck on the top, or just a simple button-up blouse with the cardigan over it, or again, cardigan as a top, all would look great. So I've got 3 cardigans to talk through. And the first one is the Calm Down cardigan. This is by Lily Kate France. And I've seen this cardigan a lot of times. I might have actually talked about it before. I do really love it. I think it's just a really simple cardigan, but has really interesting details with kind of this rib column going down the shoulder and into the sleeve, and then it matches here along the side where you pick up stitches for the arms. So it's got some nice details to it, but it's still overall a really simple cardigan. And I kind of feel like the ribbing down the sleeve almost looks collegiate. Like, there's a lot of, like in a sports jersey, I'm clearly outing myself as someone who's never played sports, but that kind of, it looks collegiate to me. Like you're on a sports team or something, like have this stripe, you're wearing your jersey, or you're wearing your bomber jacket from your sport. And I feel like a lot of them have kind of this stripe detail. And so I think that adds to kind of this collegiate academic look, and it's just overall like a really simple, mostly stockinette cardigan. I like that the buttons intentionally don't go all the way down, so you get kind of a little flare at the bottom, at the buttonhole, or at the button band. It kind of is meant to open a little bit, and yeah, it would look nice with a button down. It would look nice. I think that I would style this with like a turtleneck, and then have it tucked in a little bit to a pair of trousers, and maybe have it in like a nutty brown to make a light academia look. I'm definitely more into light academia because I like light colors. But you could do the, maybe a gray if you wanted a dark academia look. So yeah, great cardigan. It's a DK weight, and it fits busts between 28 inches and 62 inches. The next pattern we'll talk about is the Gaon cardigan. I apologize if I'm not saying that right. And it's by Sumin On, and it is in fingering weight. So it would be a lot of knitting, but it's in fingering weight, and it goes between a 43-inch circumference and a 73-inch circumference. And then the ease, it doesn't tell me the ease. I would assume, though, maximum 10 inches. So, you've got between a 33 and maybe a 63 to fit. And it's a very nice cardigan. It's got this wide ribbing, and then a nice large button band, and it's got a little bit of a V-neck, but it's not too deep of a V. And then overall, it's just shaped, I think, really classily, and I like the wide ribbing on it. I think that does look collegiate. I feel like I'd see one of my professors wearing this, again, teaching economics, holding Karl Marx book or something in his hands, and this nice sweater. And I love the sample color that it's knit in. It's this kind of muted, I want to say berry red. I know that's not really a color, but it's muted, more purpley red, and it looks beautiful. I think that fits both academias really well, because it is darker, so it could go dark academia if you were wearing maybe some darker pants with it, but you can also style it with maybe some light pants because of the tone with the red to get a light academia look. So I love this color, but otherwise, a neutral, light or dark, depending on what you want, as far as light or dark academia. And then, you could do blue or green, some of those yellow, like a nice color. So yeah, it's another great pattern. And the final cardigan I'll talk about, this is the Cardi Jumper. This is by Vert Knit, And I just think this is such a nice piece. I've looked at it before. I don't think I've talked about it before, but it reminds me of something you'd see from Cezanne, which is a French clothing designer that's very, very fancy. I've thought before, by the way, about doing I think I've seen someone do this before and would love to do one myself of talking about, here's these patterns from Cezanne or these sweaters from Cezanne. Can we find knit pattern dupes? So let me know if that does sound interesting. But this sweater definitely reminds me of a Cezanne piece. It's a sport weight and it goes to between a 30-inch bust and a 62-inch bust to fit those measurements. And it's so beautiful. It's just a simple stockinette piece. It's got a very thin button band. I think it's actually with an I-cord with these tiny little pearl buttons. And what's cool about this is you can wear it backwards too and get kind of a boat neck look. And so it's got a slight V-neck to it. You can wear it either way. And I think this with a pair of trousers or over a pencil skirt would just look very professional. It's right on the line of, it looks professional, but it still looks kind of youthful. I think that's, to me, what differentiates academia from, workwear or business wear, is that it's professional, but it's still got this like element of youthfulness or frivolity. I don't know if frivolity is the right word, but it's not so work. And so the sweater being really cute with these little pearl buttons and the silhouette being like more delicate, I think gets you that right on the academia line. And, not to say that I wouldn't wear this to work, I 100% would, but, I wear a lot of things to work. And I think that this to me is showing more of the academic style and is just a really beautiful piece. So yeah, there's a version with stripes as well, which could be interesting and cool. I feel like I'd probably knit the neutral no stripe version if I wanted to stick with the academia style, but could add stripes and style it as well. That definitely goes kind of more collegiate than the dark or light academia. But yeah, so those are the cardigan patterns. And moving on to our next category is turtlenecks. So of course I'm wearing a turtleneck, and a lot of the time you see more of these machine made, closer fitting, not knitted turtlenecks, but you could also knit a turtleneck for this. And so let's talk through some of those. So the first one that I'm featuring is the classic. This is by Space Tricot, which is a knitting store somewhere in Canada. I'm forgetting exactly where, but it's a beautiful, simple turtleneck piece. It's a raglan design and it's just got a nice neck. I've actually almost knit this quite a few times and just for whatever reason never have. It's got a nice split hem, which I love personally for having my hips are a lot larger than my bust, but also it's nice to be able to do kind of a French tuck with your split hems. And I think a French tuck looks very nice with the other elements of a dark academia or light academia outfit. And so this is a DK weight. It's made to hold a fingering and a lace together. And the sizes, it goes from 43 inches to 64 inches. And it does not tell you the expected ease, but I would wear this a lot closer to the body. So maybe expect at max 4 inches of ease. So let's say it goes from a 39 to a 60-inch bust. The next one I'll talk about is the caramel sweater. This is by Petite Knit. It's one of her older patterns, and it's pretty similar to the caramel or the classic by Space Tricot. But it's got wider ribs, so it's got 2x2 rib instead of the 1x1 rib of a Space Tricot's, and it has a fold over neck. But it is still a raglan and pretty close to the body, especially compared to other Petite Knit patterns. This is one that has less ease to it. And it's just a really nice classic piece. I love her black sample. I think that looks really nice and could be styled in a dark academia way. She also has this kind of caramel brown sample, which I also think lends towards light academia and looks really nice. So this one is also a DK weight. It's made to be yarn held together, so a fingering and a lace held together, and it goes from a 31-inch to a 51-inch bust. So hopefully, I know Petite Knit's going through some of her older patterns and adding more sizes, so hopefully we see this one get more sizes, because normally I don't want to talk about patterns that don't go as high up, but hopefully in the future this one does. So that's why I'm still featuring it. And it is a really nice look, and I think, has that academia look. So our final turtleneck here is the Norma Jean turtleneck. This is by Fable Knitwear, and it's got a completely different construction to the other one. So it's kind of made to look like a 1940s tailored sweater, and so, or 1950s, 1960s fitted tailored sweater. And yeah, it's made to be worn with these high-waisted trousers or over a skirt or a dress. And it goes from an 80 centimeter to a 135 centimeter bust, which I'm sorry, I do not understand the metric system, which I know is very American of me. A 31.5-inch bust to a 53-inch bust. So again, it is less sizes here, but Fable Knitwear has a policy of she does have her patterns graded to other sizes, but hasn't been able to find testers for all of them. And so for any patterns that you're interested in from her, if there isn't a size available for you on her pattern, if you reach out to her, she should have that size, and we'll give you the pattern for free to test, and then we'll add that size to her list. So, if you are, above a 53-inch bust, I highly recommend reaching out to her if you are interested in knitting this pattern. But yeah, it's a beautiful, closer fitting kind of, I think it's maybe a set and sleeve construction, maybe a saddle shoulder. I can't exactly find. There's a tiny little puff to the sleeves, and overall it just fits really closely. She's made it in this beautiful tweed yarn, but I think you could make it in a lot of different, simple yarns and get just a really nice look. Style it, maybe with a sweater vest or with a cardigan over it or something like that to really sell this look, or maybe even under a dress if you have kind of one of those overall dresses that, or I think it's called like a pinafore dress. I don't know, but you could style it under a lot of things or just as your top, and it would give you that dark academia or light academia look. Moving on to our last category, we've got scarves and accessories. So a lot of the time it's interesting. The academia style is definitely meant to be more for fall or winter. And so there's a lot of wool coats seen. I never have seen a dark or light academia style that has a hat, which is interesting, but there's lots of these big scarves. And so I've got some scarves to talk about and then one other accessory. So the first scarf to go with your dark or light academia wardrobe is the Berlin scarf. This is by Suzanne Mueller, also known as Paula Strict. And this was released last year, and I was obsessed with it last December when it came out. I never did make it just because I don't have any bulky yarn in stash, but it's a beautiful piece, and maybe one day I will buy some bulky yarn to make this with. So it is a bulky weight scarf, and it's one size because it's a scarf, and it's a really cool construction. It's basically knit in a tube. You just knit this tube in the round for a really long time, and then to finish it you add I-cords to kind of seal it and give the look of fringe on a traditional or woven scarf. And so it's beautiful, it looks so cozy, and I love the color that Suzanne Mueller has chosen for this in her sample photos, to just have this kind of cream color. I think that goes with a lot, and she styled it with this tan wool coat, which looks nice and goes into that light dark academia look. You could, do the same thing or a darker color. Maybe this is your pop here and you want to do like army green, or not an army, like a green, a deep emerald green in this, or an orange or a red, something like that to get this scarf. And yeah, it's a beautiful scarf to go with, going between all your classes. You can put this on if you are actually still in academia, or just to, look like that on your way to work or wherever you may be going and need a scarf. The next pattern is another scarf. This is by Space Tricot, and this is a free pattern from them, and it's this beautiful scarf. It's called the On the Rails scarf, and I've also been obsessed with this scarf for a long time and wanted to knit it, but I just can't convince myself to knit a long panel of fabric when there's so many sweaters in the world to be knit, which are so much more fun to do. But this is a beautiful scarf. It's got some really interesting, pretty subtle texture where a lot of it is just stockinette, but then you've got these ribbed areas that then are kind of broken up and make an overall really beautiful look. And it's nice to be wrapped around, you know, as a normal kind of thinner scarf, but it is wider and can also be kind of worn like a little shawl. And yeah, I think that it's just a nice, simple scarf with a little bit of texture to it. So I would recommend this one as well for that look, for that dark academia look. And our final pattern of the day is a pair of socks. And so these are the ruffle socks by Petite Knit. There are tons and tons of socks like this that have ruffles. So feel free to look around for yourself. You can just look up ruffle socks on Ravelry is what I did to find these. And I decided to go with these because the ruffle is facing down. A lot of them have the ruffle kind of sticking up. And I love the way that these socks look with the ruffle kind of facing down, and they look great in Mary Jane's and in Oxfords, would look great sticking out of some loafers, and are that kind of like cute but professional element that I was talking about of, you know, it's not, they're going to be, I'd recommend knitting these in like a white or a cream or a black, like a neutral color for these. And it's a fingering weight sock. They have a few different sizes for different feet measurements. So I would recommend these in like a neutral color to get the dark or light academia, probably more of a light academia look here because dark academia is usually more serious. But so I would recommend maybe a white or a cream or maybe a brown in these to keep it simple in colors and more sophisticated that way. But then the ruffle just adds this little bit of youthfulness and, you know, shows, you know, this aesthetic is meant to be worn by young adults in college or professors. And so I think that the ruffle sock shows that well, especially Petite Knit has them styled here in a pair of Oxfords in the white color. And I just think that they look wonderful. It's a nice style. I mean, she's wearing jeans, but with a pair of loafers or maybe with tights and a pencil skirt would look wonderful and give you that little bit of cuteness within the light academia style specifically. So yeah. All right. Those are the patterns I'm going to talk about today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you got some inspiration from this. Let me know if you like these styles, if you've already dressed in these styles, if there's a crucial element I missed. Just let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear it. And, you know, I'll see you again next week. If you are a returning viewer, thanks for coming back, and I hope to see you again soon. And otherwise, enjoy your week, happy knitting, and talk to you soon. Okay, bye!